What happened when Giorgio Armani decided to redefine luxury hospitality and teamed up with a world-class hotelier? What you got was Armani Hotels in Dubai and Milan and a new era of lifestyle hospitality. Today you'll hear inside story from Marc Dardenne himself. Marc Dardenne helped Giorgio Armani bring his vision of hospitality to life, launching the world's first Armani hotels beyond Armani. Marc has led luxury brands across 4 continents, building iconic hotels and shaping lifestyle hospitality as we know it. Marc, welcome back. And good to have you here for another episode.
Thank you, Sam. Great to be back here. Obviously, for a little bit of a sad episode with the passing of Mr. Armani. I was really shocked when I read the news. Sometimes you think that these iconic personalities will never go, and in just I think he will certainly never go. He'll be always in my memories, that's for sure. So again, a very sad moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's one of the icons and larger than life personalities, and his couture. I mean, is he has set the tone for the couture, and also, and in our conversation about the hotel that you opened for him or with him, and I was watching from across the street a little bit how things were going when I was living in Dubai, just opposite Burj Khalifa. So, and I had also the pleasure of taking a look at during the opening when you were there, and so it was very impressive. But let's start about your relationship and so on with Mr. Armani. So, when you first partnered with Mr. Armani, what struck you most about how he viewed hospitality?
For him, it was something completely new because obviously, fashion is really his thing. He branched out in several other areas, but hospitality, he needed a lot of convincing to get into hospitality. And it's our chairman at that time, Mohammed Alaba, who put a lot of efforts and a lot of personal involvement to persuade Mr. Armani to get into hotels, right? So his main worry was really his brand, how a hotel can enhance the brand, his brand, or obviously maybe dilute the brand, right? So through the fact that there's so many touch points in a hotel that you can't control. You can't control the experience at 2 o'clock in the morning when somebody checks in, how many meals are being served in a hotel. And again, that was one of his main concerns, and obviously fashion brands are all about brands, right? So they are very, very protective. And he was certainly apprehensive.
Yeah. Did you see some trade-offs balancing Mr. Armani's vision with the real world hotel operation?
Yeah, I think Mr. Armani was a very practical man and certainly very business minded. Many times he asked me, Mark, does that make business sense, right? Can you sell it? Is that going to work? So I think that was great. In other points, he was really reluctant to change his style, right? Because obviously that's his style. Now you like it or you don't like it, but it is his style, and especially on when we had this discussion. I remember when we were setting up the Armani in Milan, and I wanted to ask Mr. Armani's opinion about, let's say, the spaghetti pomodoro. And he said, look, you do what you do, but one thing, don't change the furniture, don't move the furniture, or don't move the flowers, right? So, because he was all about aesthetics, and obviously food and beverage was important, but I think there were some trade-offs there. Also, initially, obviously, trade-offs in the selection of materials. He had chosen very very silky material for the staff uniforms, which didn't last really. High heel shoes for the hostesses. They loved the shoes, but they were crying after half an hour because they couldn't, they couldn't stand for 8 hours with those shoes. So we had to do some adaptations. but certainly he would listen, right? So, and I still remember one. It's a bit of a funny story when he wanted to have a black soap, and everybody said this is not going to work, right? It's a black soap, a soap that is black is maybe feels dirty, etc. And nobody had the courage to actually ask him, right? So then I kind of said, look, somebody has got to do it, right? So let me do it. I said, look, Mr. Armani, we all think that the black soap is not going to work, but we certainly respect your views. Why don't you take the sample and take it home and just use it? So he did that. He came back and he agreed. He said, okay, let's do it amber. And so the Armani soap became amber. So you could reason with him and he would
Yes,
listen. And I think it was a great relationship.
wonderful. So, how did Mr. Armani's eye for detail influence your own approach to design and guest experience?
Oh, it's like incredible. And to this day, I can't understand that he was controlling every single thing in his organization. And that's why he didn't, he kept his whole empire until the end, and he was taking every single decision. Still remember going for some sessions, workshops to Milan, and he had a building, and he was going from haute couture to kids clothing to maybe Samsung TV, and then he ended up with us. And he remembered every single detail. Sometimes we were hoping that he wouldn't remember, but unfortunately, he always remembered, right? So we wanted to change something. He said, yeah, but like 3 months ago, I told you that it's going to be gray, not black. I said, yeah, then we all had to say he didn't forget, right? So that eye for detail was one of the areas we had to take as we, embraced it, of course, but that was the eye of detail to service delivery, to attention to detail in terms of the guest experience, guest history, profile, etc. So we really applied a little bit the same philosophy for the service delivery at the Armani organization.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the building Burj Khalifa, I mean, at Armani Hotel Dubai, how did you keep Armani's essence alive without being overshadowed by this uh, majestic building like Burj Khalifa?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question because architecturally, it's just a wonder, and really a lot of people actually preferred staying outside of Burj Khalifa to look at Burj Khalifa. So we had to really create an atmosphere that was not competing with Burj Khalifa, but was as attractive in its own way. For example, for New Year's Eve, we actually obviously we had to bring our guests out of the building to really view the fireworks on the show, etc., etc. But I think he was really able to create this special enclave, and there were three entrances into Burj Khalifa, and one was the Armani experience, right? When you would come in, and immediately when you stepped in, or even before when you arrived at the hotel, you were kind of immersed in the Armani world and forgot a little bit about Burj Khalifa and forgot a bit where you are. And obviously you had beautiful views over the fountain or over the other buildings, etc. So it was not really competing with the architecture, but really creating something that is as powerful, but obviously in a different way, more architecturally.
Yeah, I remember the first time when I stepped into the hotel, I felt I was walking into a different world, and I totally forgot about being in Burj Khalifa. In fact, so I mean, I think it was very well put together, and it felt actually intimate. The hotel when you walk in there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it was a very difficult task because the ceiling heights were huge, right? So
Yeah,
very high. And that's why when you came into the lobby, number one, it was a little bit dim. I wouldn't call it bright. And he did that on purpose because of obviously the light in Dubai. For example, the Armani Hotel in Milan is different. It's much lighter in tone. It's more in the grayish tone because obviously Milan doesn't have as much sun. But you're right. When you came into the lobby, it was this cocoon of simplicity and beautiful pieces. we didn't have a front desk, 15 years ago, 20 years ago when we conceived the hotel, front desk was still a must. Today, we all agree that you don't need a front desk anymore, but 15 years ago was quite a challenge, right? So to design a hotel that is so personalized that you don't need a front desk. And I hate front desk anyway. They're a barrier between customers and our colleagues. And then you had the arrival experience. You had a private collection of his watches, of his perfumes, etc., etc. And then the F&B offering was just outstanding. The rooms, very, very peaceful. I mean, it was not to everybody's liking because, some people like it a little bit more colorful and etc. But it was certainly attracting the kind of the maybe a newer generation of travelers that were looking for something very special.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was the casual restaurant was called Beck,
Yeah, that was,
right?
yeah, go ahead.
And I went to Milan with my wife, and then of course I have to go see Beck also. And of course, I have to admit I liked the Beck in Milan, but I actually liked the Beck in Dubai better
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah.
But it had the essence of what Beck was all about, but it was very cleverly put together.
Yeah, yeah, we had to adjust a little bit because Milan was all about more of a deli type takeaway, etc. So we added obviously service into the service sequence because Dubai at that time and still now people like to be served versus themselves serving. But yeah, so we had to make some adjustments to the F&B and obviously to the local market, right? Specifically on the F&B.
Yeah. What other restaurants are there at Armani Dubai? Just
Yeah,
off the
we
top of my
had
head.
we had obviously Ristorante, which was our fine dining. We had the casual restaurant. We had the Indian restaurant also that was very, very popular. We have a Japanese restaurant overlooking the fountain, the nightclub, which was the Armani Club, and so we had several really restaurants. And again, at that time, there was a lack of food and beverage in Dubai, and of course
Yes.
now there's just so much food and beverage, right? So, but that was a big part of the Armani experience. Even in Milan, we had a Nobu, we had a lounge, we had a cafe, etc. So it's clear that you want to give the full experience to the customers.
Yeah, yeah. I just another thought is that can a fashion brand's DNA truly translate into hospitality, or does it inevitably evolve into something new?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting when you look at the history of the fashion brands, and it's coming back a little bit. We actually exploring a couple of opportunities ourselves, right? So, but when you look at a good example is Versace, right? So Versace, two hotels. Both of them, I mean, I don't want to put them down, but like I didn't see the one in Australia, but I don't think has done really well. The one in Dubai was maybe a location issue, because it was certainly as a leisure hotel in the wrong location, nicely executed, but has also not done well. So the challenge is really when you take a fashion brand, if you really want to give it the whole experience, you have to go all the way, like Versace did and like Armani did. You can't go halfway, can't say it's an Armani hotel, but it doesn't look like Armani, etc. So everything was designed by Mr. Armani from the obviously clearly a design direction on the interiors. He was not so much involved on the architecture, but certainly the colleague fashion. Clearly, obviously, that was certainly the direction in terms of food and beverage, the room, the scent, and also the service delivery was very Armani. So we really went all the way to try to immerse the hotel with that Armani experience. If you go halfway, then it's never really going to work. There were a
Yeah.
couple of other examples where you see, let's say, I mean, again, I don't want to say anything about brands, but a Dolce Gabbana beach club. So I went to one recently, and it was just the umbrellas and the towels, right? So that's not the Dolce Gabbana experience. Uh, it's just a branding exercise, right?
Yes.
So I think that's the challenge with these fashion brands. If you really want to do fashion brands, then you have to go all the way, which obviously did with Armani. Uh, only two hotels. The financial crisis came and obviously put a little bit of hold on our development pipeline. They have obviously expanded the Armani brand in residences, which is a little bit easier because, it's furniture, there's less service delivery, etc., etc. But I think I would say that's the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Armani hotels are known for understatement. How did you balance that ethos with Dubai's love for extravagance?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. There was a big question there, and I must really say that the Armani look is not for everyone, right? So it's like a fashion. Either you like his look, you like the simplicity of and the elegance of his look, or maybe you want something uh, obviously much more colorful, like a Versace or Dolce and Gabbana, etc., etc. So it is certainly very niche, and some people love it. It's like an Amman hotel, right? Some people love the Amman hotels. They are Amman junkies. They only stay in Amman hotels because they love the quietness, they love the design, the Asian feeling, etc. With Armani, it was the same thing, and I still remember being called, but by one of the sheikhs from Saudi Arabia, and he called me up. Mark, are you the general manager? I said, yes, I am, or the CEO, whatever. So I said, yes, Your Highness, how can I help you? He said, come to my room. I said, okay, fine. I'll go to his suite, and he said, you know, where's the chandelier? where, where are the dates? Where are the fruits? Because then he pointed to me at our fruit decoration was also designed by Mr. Armani. It was like four strawberries and two blueberries, but the most beautiful blueberries you can find. I'm exaggerating a little bit there. Are the four most beautiful strawberries. They say, yalla, where are the dates? Where are the bananas, etc. And then they say, no cushions on this. This is too hard. So I said, Your Excellency and Your Highness, really, I can certainly give you dates and I certainly give you fruits, etc. I can't put a chandelier. I can't put paintings because Mr. Armani insisted on having no art on the walls. It is as it is. So we had return customers that would come back and stay always at the hotel. But then we had some people who said, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
And that's what today, it has become the markets have become so differentiated that you need to find your niche, especially in the ultra luxury. You can't be all for everything, right? So you can't try to attract families and adults only and fashion and this and try to do everything. Then it's not going to work. So in a case, you need to find your niche and stay true to your niche, and that's what we did. So we had again a lot of very loyal customers, but then we lost a few that didn't like the style, and
Yeah.
it is what it is. But up to now, 15 years, the hotels, both of them, Milan and Dubai, have done extremely well, and we're all very proud of those two hotels.
Yeah. You mentioned how uh, Mr. Armani was very detailed, and he had a very good memory, and he believed in the aesthetics, and he had some particular style. So obviously, there's some lessons that one can learn, or the industry can learn. But what lessons from Armani's way of working does the hotel industry still struggle to embrace today?
Yeah, it's a good point, a very, very good point. Um, Number one, how did we learn from Mr. Armani? That was quite a challenge because we said I was thinking and with our team who were brainstorming, what does it actually mean an Armani hotel? From a physical point of view, we knew what it's going to be, but what was the service delivery? And the only way we could figure out what a service delivery was to understand Mr. Armani himself, right? And understand his philosophy and his DNA and so on. So I spent a lot of time with his organization and with him. And I also spent a lot of time in his various stores, right? Just to get the DNA of himself, the pillars. They were unwritten. There was nothing written. So you had to really pick them up. And a couple of those pillars was obviously, elegance, again, eye for detail. A big one was humble. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story about his humbleness, simplicity, humbleness, So I remember going in on kindness, he was a very kind man, very private person, but very humble person. You have never seen him. I've never seen him ever brag about himself or talk, etc. I have never seen him. I've seen him upset, but never always full of respect, right? So you can be upset of something because it didn't go his way or we didn't understand what he wanted, etc. But I've never remembered him to be, out of place. You might also. So then we created really the vision, the mission, and then we created a culture, right? For me, that was important. And I think it's important to every organization, the purpose. What is the purpose? What is the culture, the Armani culture? And transfer that into a hospitality experience. So we had our Credo cards, we were talking about it. And one of my biggest worry was that we would be, especially our colleagues would be so proud of themselves that they would look down on customers, right? So let's say you come in, you step into the hotel and you wear jeans. It might be expensive jeans, but you wear jeans. It doesn't really matter. You need to be welcomed the same way that we would welcome a sheikh or, a royalty, etc., etc. So I think that was an important statement to make sure that we stayed humble and we really represented his brand. And the story that I have also, and I think I mentioned that to you once, was the opening party. When we did the opening party, there were two things. One, I went to pick him up at the airport, with his team, etc. And he was very worried. So I said, Mr. Armani, everything is great. We have a fantastic team. We're ready. We are, it's going to be a great party. I said, look, Mark, I'm worried because I designed this hotel 5 years ago. I chose the curtains 5 years ago. In my world, we change every quarter, every season. I said, Mr. Armani, one thing we can't do is change the curtains because we had kilometers of these curtains, beautiful fabrics, right? But they say, I know, but I'm really worried about that, that I don't like, Mr. Armani, everybody loves it. And so I had to reassure him. The second thing, I had really spoken to our teams to give Mr. Armani privacy, please, don't take pictures with him, let him be private. If he approaches you, that's fine. We were concerned about it because everybody was so excited to see him that everybody wanted to approach him. And I said, look, let's give him time. And then when Mr. Armani came, he was the first one to let's do a group picture, let's do selfies, let's do, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll take a selfie with him also because he was so welcoming. And then, the whole evening was him being approachable and, again, humble, very, very, respectful to also line staff, right? So I still remember even somebody who was looking after the restrooms, he would be very, and that's the way I work, right? So that, you want to treat people like you want to be treated. It doesn't matter who you are, and you're going to treat everybody with respect. And that's what he really did. And he ended up in the nightclub, behind the DJ station and taking photos. So I got that totally wrong, right? So then the next morning I told Mr. Armani, Mr. Armani, I'm really so pleased that you were so approachable and so, so humble and approachable with our team. So they're so excited, etc. I said, look, Mark, do you know what that name is here on I said, this is your name, Mr. Armani. I said, look, if I'm not humble, if I'm not approachable, that means my brand is not approachable. So that was a big learning for me, how you have to stay true to the brand. And I think one thing we did really well is that we really completely aligned with his philosophy and with his brand, right? So I think that was a huge satisfaction on his side and also obviously on our side.
Very good. Well, these are very good learnings from the time you spent with Mr. Armani. So looking back, what bold decision did you make on the Armani projects that went against the hotel industry convention of its time?
Yeah, I think, again, backtrack 15 years ago. This was still early, especially in Dubai where you had fairly traditional hotels. You had the Address, also part of the group, right? That was what I call the first lifestyle hotel, and that hotel did very, very well when we opened. The Armani Hotel, again, not new, but the whole arrival experience, the tailoring guest profiles, right? So we had a team of not butlers. We didn't want to call them butlers, but they were lifestyle. I can't remember the whole name now. They were lifestyle agents, or we had a different word, but or creators, etc. So we wanted really not to have a butler. Butler, in my opinion, is very old-fashioned, and it's
Yeah.
really, opening your luggage and polishing your shoes. It's very subservient in a sense.
Yes.
Nothing against it. Maybe some people like it. I personally don't like people looking into my luggage, etc. But that's me. And we wanted to have these lifestyle colleagues that were really were preparing uh, your whole stay from A to Z, right? And creating that connection with our customers and really be really, the private secretaries or private lifestyle organizer, so they wanted to have a dinner somewhere. We knew all their preferences. We knew that they were smoking, not smoking. Now nobody smokes anymore, but they like sparkling water. So even if we organized a restaurant reservation outside of Armani, we would make sure that the restaurant there would recognize the guests and they would have an incredible experience, right? So, you tell me this is not groundbreaking. I think 15, 20 years ago, it was probably ahead of its time. The second bit, which we talked about, for example, is the desk, the no desk policy, right? We don't have a desk because we don't need a desk. We know when you come, we had your credit card, we picked you up from the airport, and it was, all very, very smooth. And you didn't want to have this barrier, and we wanted really have our colleagues have quality time with the guests. Because when you check in a traditional hotel, you go to the desk. If you're lucky, you don't have to wait in line. Then the colleague looks at you, takes your passport, looks at the screen, looks at you, looks at the screen, looks at you, looks at the screen. It can't engage in anything positive versus saying, "Oh, Mrs. Smith, it's nice to have you back. Oh, this time you have your kids. We have arranged something special for you. That conversation on let me show you to your suite and so on. This is a great experience, right? And everything is very, very smooth. So we even pushing now facial recognition in a new brand that we're launching, because if you can check in to Dubai, you walk into a tunnel in Dubai, you don't have to show your passport anymore. You just walk in. So why can't you walk into a hotel and do the same thing? So I think that was the second part. The third one we introduced is a 24-hour stay program. The worst thing on earth. And recently I stayed in a hotel. I say, oh, your check-in time is 4 o'clock, but you have to check out at 11 in the morning. That's cheating our customers for 5 hours. I pay for 24 hours. And you tell me you're going to take away 5 hours of my time that I paid you because you want to clean my room. Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. So we really took that barrier out. And it was a little bit of a challenge, and the front office manager didn't like me, and the reservation manager didn't like me, etc. But I said, guys, and the housekeeper said, we will have to clean room at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, why not? What's the problem? Oh, but everybody comes at 8. Hello, let them come in the afternoon shift. In our business, we are so entrenched. Okay, everybody shows up at 8 o'clock. Then we have a morning meeting at 8:30, right? The busiest time. The chef sits in the morning meeting, and the GM and the food and beverage guy, and we have breakfast going on, and everybody sits in a morning meeting, right? I mean, it's still going on. I tell you, I go to hotels and say, oh, where is everyone? Oh, they have a morning meeting. I said, at 9 o'clock? Yeah, you must be kidding. So there's a couple of things we certainly did there. The whole lifestyle thing, the itinerary, obviously, we also introduced, there's no turn down. So for example, you're in your room, it's midday, you go to the gym, you come back, and you drop your towels on the floor. You come back at 3, everything was back in order. If we had to go about 5 times into the room, we would do it. It's a concept. We knew that you were not there because we had technology, and we would go back. So there was no turn down. It was a constant servicing of. The other thing is obviously the team. It was so important that we had the right team in place. So and again, it's old hat that you hire for attitude, not for, and we really did that, right? So, people had to look the part, but most importantly, they had to love the brand. They had to love the brand. If we hired somebody and said, why do you want to join us? I love the Armani brand. I want to wear a suit, and I can't afford a suit, but I want to wear a suit. It's like going to an Apple store. That's my favorite also, the Apple store, right? People in the Apple store love Apple, right? You have been to an Apple store. They know everything about Apple, but it's not that they want to sell you something. They just love the brand. And that's why it's so incredible. I went to an Apple store. I'm not a big IT guy, but the guy was so passionate. At the end, I bought 2, 3 things that I didn't need, but I thought, God, he was a great salesman, and he could only be such a good salesman because he loved the brand. So we needed people who really loved the brand, right? We had a few failures, of course, because some people just wanted a suit but not work, right? so I said, okay, the suit is good, but you got to work with the suit also, And so we had our issues also, but I think the right selection, that people are really passionate about what they do. And I tell you, it was also the purpose. The purpose. Everybody had a purpose. Even we had, and I always say even because sometimes we don't think about that, a steward. A steward had to have a purpose. We were really talking to our teams in stewarding and said, look, you are the foundation of the Armani experience. You are cleaning these plates that are 200 euros a piece, and you're creating an experience, And the other thing was the legacy that, everybody's the same. I'm the same. You love to leave something behind you that you're proud of. And just recently, when I saw all this outpour of sadness and messages, etc., everybody was part of it. There were multiple GMs. There were so many people who started in between, still working there. So, they have all a purpose, and they have all a legacy that they're leaving behind.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, so many things that you mentioned, and I think this is for the audience to really take some notes, because it's so old-fashioned to have the that the hotel reception looks like a post office where you have a desk,
Yeah.
and I think people are looking at me also when I mentioned that I hate front desks. I mean, this is absolutely, I don't like barriers when it comes to service. So it's so true. So okay, now 15 years later, and if you were to redesign Armani hotels today for the new generation of travelers, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I think potentially I would do the food and beverage a little bit different, right? Because uh, F&B it's a different business.
Yeah,
It's really a different business. And what, for example, Mr. Armani did really well was in Milan he had Nobu, so he associated himself with another brand. So maybe what we should have done, or we tried at the beginning with the F&B, is an association with, for example, the Japanese could have been a Nobu, or maybe the Indian could have been an association with a star Indian chef, etc. So I think on the F&B we could have make it more attractive. At that time, there was probably much less competition. So now I don't know how well they do. They're probably struggling a little bit. Milan was also again, Milan was the relationship with Nobu. So certainly on the F&B side, I would have done something a little bit different, right?
yeah,
The the again maybe that's an evolution that could have happened with with the design of the hotel. That would have been obviously Mr. Armani's decision on choice, etc. I would have maybe made it a bit less masculine. I think the design is very masculine for both Milan, maybe a little bit less, but certainly, and that maybe doesn't attract so much the female side of the customers. Because even when you look at Bulgari, for example, they have evolved their style. When you look at the first Bulgari to now, for example, Paris, which I liked a lot, because it's a little bit lighter in terms of design, etc. So I would think that Mr. Armani would have evolved his design, to make it a little bit more approachable.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Do you see the Armani hotels as setting a precedent for fashion-led hospitality, or was it a one of a kind of vision of its time?
I think because it's just so expensive and so niche, that's one of the reasons why that he has not been pursued more. I mean, on the Armani side, I think there's a few other attempts now. There's a lot of the fashion brands that have gone into us. There's much more of a blur between hospitality, food and beverage, fashion brands, because at the end of the day, they are the same customers, right? So that's why you see a lot of pop-ups in a beach destination, in Ibiza, in all these great places where, or Courchevel, for so on, so on. So you have these pop-up because everybody's targeting these high net worth individuals, right? And they travel to all the same places. They go to ski to Courchevel, then they go to Cannes, then they go Turks and Caicos, they go to the Greek islands, etc. Where they're going, and all these fashion brands are kind of following them. And one way to interact with them, obviously, is through food and beverage, right? So.
Yes.
So some are successful, but then, I thought, for example, the beach experience, as a Dolce Gabbana, just having the material on the towels, on the umbrellas, doesn't give you the full experience, right? So I think they have to be a little bit careful to make sure that they don't, do collaboration that might dilute their brand. Maybe just another one is on branded residences. That's also one of my favorite topics, right? Because now, especially in Dubai and Miami, has gone wild. And you have branded residences from a Chelsea Football Club. Interesting. I don't know if I like Manchester United, which I do, unfortunately, because for 10 years we didn't have a good season. Why would how does it a Chelsea Football Club branded residence look like? Or you take Mercedes-Benz, right? Okay, the Prestige, I have an apartment at the Mercedes-Benz or the Bentley, a Bentley building. But I think it has gone a little bit, I think, out of hand in a sense. I certainly believe in the branded residences when it's really lifestyle, so you buy into a lifestyle that, for example, I live in a hotel, not a hotel, but like a residence that is connected to a hotel. So I love it because this morning I went to do yoga, and then on this afternoon I'm going to go to the gym and do a little bit of a workout, and then I go down to the beach club for lunch. If I need something, I can just pick up the phone. So I buy into that lifestyle, right? So, but if I just buy into a building that has no services, I don't see the value to pay 30 to 40% more than an unbranded residence. So
Right.
I think it's slowly going to come back to normality, in my opinion. So I certainly believe a lot in branded residences if they are connected with a lifestyle element.
Okay. If you're enjoying these behind the scenes stories, hit subscribe because I got more conversations with the world leading hoteliers coming up. And stick around because Mark's about to share some light-hearted stories from working directly with Mr. Armani. He already did earlier, but we have a few more what I call the off the mic questions. Excellent. Well, thank you, Mark. This has been such a good learning experience. And as you know, knew Mr. Armani, you worked for him and with him on his exciting projects. And it's looking back, it's about 15, 20 years ago. It's kind of amazing how at that time he was with that vision, and then you were right there next to him, putting things together to the two fantastic hotels. So thanks very much for sharing all these stories and anecdotes about the time with him.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Always a pleasure to be on your podcast.
If you enjoy this rare look inside the Armani Hotel story, give this video a like and share it with a friend in the hospitality world. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week I bring you conversations with the leaders shaping the future of travel and hotels. Until next time, stay inspired.